Time of day that you start to get time of day, yeah. That's fine. Welcome back to Shua, of course. Notice that he showed up from the other side of the world. You through, I imagine, through Moscow, right?
That is a can of worms I'm not opening.
I don't think you would make it if that was your flight, but. Okay. We are learning the laws of how to kasher a kitchen, and yesterday we spoke about the basic principles: kli rishon, kli sheni, irui. There's different levels of haga'ala, of using the boiling hot water system, and what we have to complete today is talking about what do you do when a vessel usually is used in, let's say, as a bowl, as a spoon, for eating hot food, but not for cooking. But then sometimes, like we said, a fork or a spoon, you're actually gonna put it into the cooking pot to stir up. Mostly I use the spoons for eating my soup. That's kli shlishi. How do you kasher that? If all you use the spoon for in the kli shlishi, how would you kasher that? No mikveh. Just say you weren't here yesterday, but we've said it many times. There's no mikveh when we talk about kashering dishes. That's tevilat kelim. Okay. How do you kasher it? What's it called? The first level. Not hagala, not libun. We called it yesterday. Ezra, you were here. It's called hadacha. Just rinsing it. Just washing it. Just wash it off. Make sure that there's no taste gets absorbed in a kli shlishi. You just wash off the spoon. But that same spoon, though, you could use cold water, hot water, it doesn't matter. It's fine. The problem is, you took the spoon now, and you put it into the pot, on the fire. Now it's kli rishon ala esh. Maybe in order to kasher it, you have to put it into a boiling hot pot with water. So what's the answer? Do that. Oh, you say be machmer. Okay. The truth is, it's a machloket. Most people would say to you, the simple answer is, it's a machloket Sfardim and Ashkenazi. Shulchan Aruch generally says we follow the standard usage of the vessel. Even if one time you used it for, even with the fire, if you never, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be using it for, without the fire. You'll be using it within a kli shlishi, for example, very far removed from the fire. You don't have to kasher it on that high level. Ashkenazi, most people would present it this way. They say, what do you mean? If you used it on the fire, you used that fork that you usually use for your pasta. Now you used it to turn over the steak on the fire. It absorbed meaty taste directly with the heat. So the only way to get rid of it is by burning it out. The third level, the highest level of getting rid of it. I don't care if it happened once or it happened 100 times. Once it happened once, it imbibed the taste. So the Ashkenazi custom is to be machmer on that. But Rav Melamed, when he presents it, he says, I don't want to present it as Sephardim versus Ashkenazim. Why? Because I found many, many Sephardi poskim that are machmer. And there are very many situations in which the Ashkenazi poskim are lenient, that we follow the most common usage. And therefore, he doesn't present it as a machloket. He says, bottom line is as follows. If possible,
do the best kasher.
You go for the highest level, even though just once you put the spoon into the pot, you should do hagala b'kli rishon in order to get the taste out, even if it was only once. And in cases where you can't, because putting it into the fire would ruin it, so then you can be lenient, both for Sephardim and for Ashkenazim. He doesn't make it a major divide between the traditions, and he just says, in general, we try to be machmir and use the highest level of hagala, even if it happened once. So that's why when you're kashering your spoons and your forks and your knives, usually we put them into a boiling pot of hot water, even though usually we don't use our forks and knives when you're cooking, we have other cooking utensils. Those for sure have to be put in boiling pot water. But it's very easy to, even wood, it's very easy to kasher it. You put it into the boiling pot of water, and for sure it's good, even though it may be above what you really, really need, because it's the odd time that it absorbed taste on that high level. I'll take questions. 45 degrees usually. 45 degrees.
That would seem consistent, treating them like how they're usually used would seem consistent with what you said on disposables. Or you're saying
Right.
disposables that are used again, you still treat them as though they're used once.
Correct.
Most people use them that way.
Right. What's the logic? What's the logic? Now, the logic of following the most severe usage makes sense. If it absorbed the taste, absorb the taste. You got to get rid of it in the same way that, kibolo kach poto, that's what we learned. The way it absorbs the taste, that's the way it releases it. So that makes perfect sense. What about why should you follow what usually happens? If it once absorbed, imbibed taste in a more severe fashion, it's not going to come out. So that's the way to understand it. I mean, you could say that really, if you think about it, Natan, we're all excited to see Shua. It's very exciting to have him back. But we are in the middle of the class. If you come in late, that doesn't mean that you can disturb. So, when you think about it, based on the principles we learned, what kind of taste are we trying to get out of the pot here?
The meaty taste.
The meaty taste, or the milchik taste, or the chametz taste, or whatever it happens to be. But how potent is that taste?
Depends what it is.
What else does it depend on?
If it's harif.
What else does it depend on? Good.
If it's hot, which we're saying it is. So
What else?
what the pot is made out
Time
of.
difference in your mouth.
Excellent.
Also depends
We
on
say
the
that the taste that's absorbed in the pot really is only potent for the first 24 hours. If it's after Ben Yomo, the taste, whatever's in there, it's not going to affect any of the foods. It's just we have a law that you have to kasher it, right? Because we don't want the mixing. Essentially, it almost sounds like it's a formalistic definition. Any pot that ever absorbed taste, which is not kosher, either because it was milchik and then it absorbed fleshik, or was fleshik and absorbed milchik, we have to kasher it. But we know that the taste that's in there is not potent anymore. That's the law. So same thing here. We can say that when you're kashering a dish, even if it was usually used in a kli shlishi, and once it happened that you kashered in a kli rishon, most of the time you're kashering it after 24 hours. So it really doesn't matter that you have to really get out that taste. It's more of a formalistic requirement that we have to do a hechsher kelim, like we learned from the Jews in the desert. They were, kashering the dishes of the Midianites, and that was after 24 hours, and yet you still have to do it. So the rabbis, when they set up the system, they said we follow the most common usage, the majority of the uses. If the majority of the uses is in kli shlishi is enough to wash it off. You don't even have to kasher it. So the savara makes sense. Both of them make somewhat sense. Now the question is going to become, do you have to wait 24 hours? If you know that it was used with chametz within 24 hours, can you still kasher it? According to some opinions, yes. Some opinions, no. We see that there is... why there's reason to be machmir on that, because the whole reason we rely on the following the majority of the use is perhaps only after the 24 hours. But yet we find that some poskim say even within the 24 hours it's good enough to follow the standard usage. We must say that the rabbis, when they set up the system, they wanted it to make it a standardized system, and we don't care about the extreme cases. The extreme cases, that happen to be used with a higher level of absorption. That doesn't mean we have to set up the system for that extreme case. We follow the majority of cases, covers all the bases. If you know, though, that within 24 hours it was used with the fire, then you should use fire to take it out. Okay. Let's get more practical. How do you do hachsharat kelim? The first thing you have to do, believe it or not, is you have to clean the vessel, to clean the pot. Even if you do hagala and you put it into the boiling hot water that we said, but you didn't clean it properly, there's still going to be some remnants, forget about the taste imbued in the side of the vessel. That might have come out with the boiling hot water. But if you've got leftovers there and they're still edible, then they're going to come out. The next time you cook food in it, it's going to come out. So you got to make sure it's very, very clean. And what happens, sometimes there's cracks, or sometimes there's places where for example, there's a handle that's screwed on. And in between the handle and the pot, there's lots of little pieces of food that it's very hard to clean out. The answer is we use the trick that we learned about the other day, and that is to make it pagum, make it defiled and not edible anymore. So you use a lot of cleaning liquid, a lot of dish soap, and you clean very well with dish soap, even if you don't get off every piece because it's just stuck so hard to the pot. As long as you made it spoil, you spoiled any taste that might be there, that's good enough. And so we clean the pot as best as we can with dish soap, scouring it as best as possible. Some people say the best thing is to take off those handles. If you have handles that can be screwed and unscrewed, take off the handles, you're able to get the dirt from underneath. You don't really have to, but it is better. The Haggalah is going to be better. And what happens, I'll just take one more, I'll say one more thing, I'll take your questions. Some people say also that what you have to do is, let's say you're doing Hagalat Kelim, and there is a leftover piece of food that you didn't clean it well. Does that make it not kosher? Does that ruin the Hagalah? So most people say that if there's 1/60th to nullify that non-kosher taste, then that's okay. And then also some people say what you do is you add a little bit of dish soap into the pot with the boiling hot water. And then so even if somebody comes and they bring you a dish and it wasn't clean, the dish soap makes it not edible anymore. And you don't have to worry about it, even if it's, and also it's best to do the Haggalah after 24 hours from its previous use. And so you're covered both by the dish soap and the 24 hours, and usually things are clean. In any case, so you really don't have much to worry about it. That's a good tip. About the handles, I just wanted to say one more thing about the handles. You have to kasher the handles.
Why?
Don't put soup in the handles, usually. So the truth is, two reasons. One is, the handles are attached. And if the heats up the entire pot gets hot, and so that taste that's absorbed is conducted throughout all of the vessels, we said another time, and that includes the handles. The handles also get hot, and so then the handles are going to be imbued with taste. And so you have to get the handles, the taste out of the handles. Also, second reason is that sometimes splashes go onto the handles. Fine, your soup is not in the handle, but sometimes somebody throws in another potato and the soup splashes out, or you're mixing it, whatever, the soup splashes out, so that you will have direct contact between the food that you're trying to get rid of, and it will directly fall onto the handle. Now, of course, as we learned yesterday, that's going to be on a lower level of contact. Right? The handles, even if they get splashed on, they're only getting splashed on. It's called pouring, irui, which is so theoretically what you could do is pour from boiling hot water onto the handle. That would be good enough. The rest of the vessel has to be put inside, immersed, but the handles technically could just be, usually we take a pot that's big enough to put the entire thing with the handles inside. First of all, you clean it or take it apart if you can. Take apart the handle to make sure it's very clean. But bottom line is, You could get away with irui for the handles, but it's best just to put the whole thing and the higher level of hagala in the dish itself. Now I'm going to go around the room and take questions, please.
Bottom of aluminum pots. It's very common, let's say a Teflon pan, that the bottom has these striations that they've carved into them, usually circular.
Okay.
When stuff gets on the bottom of the pot, you generally can't clean it out of there, no matter how you try.
Right.
So just even though the soap wouldn't penetrate, you can nonetheless consider it pagim because nobody's going to take a toothpick and scrape it out to eat it.
Not because nobody's going to take a toothpick and scrape it and eat it, but because, like you said, the soap has ruined whatever taste is there. But even more so, the bottom of the pot actually gets libun, right? Because it sits on the fire. So it's being burnt out always, almost every usage. You're redoing libun on the bottom of the pot. The rest of the pot, you would need to do hagala on because the fire only touches. But that's why they say most people don't have two stovetops. How can I make my pasta with cheese sauce in my milchik pan on the stovetop in the same fire, and then I finish, move it to the side, to my milchik counter, just to be machmer. I've got two sides of the kitchen. And then I put on a pot, and I make up chicken soup on the same surface. Right? It's called the stand. What are those legs called that you actually, the pot actually stands up? How come you're using it for milchik and for flakes? The answer is because it's constantly burning itself out, because the fire is always constantly making it hot. Also, we mentioned that there's no liquid there, so taste doesn't transfer. If you've got boiling hot, dry, meaty pot that touches a boiling hot, dry, milky pot, and there's no liquid in between, no taste is going to get transferred. You need that medium, that conducting liquid in between. And usually, the bottom of the pots are totally bone dry because they're being burnt all the time, and so there's no transfer of taste in any case. But that's in answer to your question. Okay, another question. Let's go around. Anybody else? Shua. We're going in order. Yeah.
So you mentioned the soap before to make it inedible.
Correct.
Is that the same with chametz as well?
Yes.
So you said that with hachsharat kelin, you can make it kasher with fire. How? I'm assuming you're probably not using like a flamethrower. How exactly do you make it? How exactly do you use fire?
We're getting there. Right now we're discussing with water. What? Boiling hot water, putting the stuff in a pot with bubbling hot water. That's what we're discussing. Next topic, tomorrow. So Hashem, we'll talk about the flamethrower. Yes?
Talking about the kashering off with the hot water, can we do with the tape water that comes from the dud? Is that hot enough?
No.
No.
We're going to get to the details about how hot it has to be.
And another one is, since David was talking about it, the heating the stand in the gas stove.
Yes.
I remember in Kashrut Pesach we have to always kasher that. And so is that because of the chametz or because of the taste around?
It's a good question. Based on what I said, we use the same stands to hold up the pot for milchik and fleishiks. We could probably use the same stand to hold up chametz and non-chametz. If there's no transfer of taste, or if there is any taste, then it gets burned out. Really, it should be enough just to use the same one. You don't have to do anything. We're machmir for Pesach more than during the year. During the year, we use the same stand for milk and for meat, one after the other. Chametz, we're more machmir than usual, as you've seen a number of times in the morning class, and that's why most people do one of two things. Some people kasher them. How would you kasher them? One of the two methods. You could dip it into the a pot with boiling water, or you could put it in the fire. Now, some of these stands are not pure metal. They're covered with some kind of a glaze of some kind of enamel. The enamel will get ruined by the fire. So I don't suggest ruining you don't have to. You don't even have to do it at all, let alone. And also some of them have like little plastic legs on the bottom. Those definitely get burned by the fire. So, but some people do that, and
Use the soap, right? That'll make the chametz inedible and won't be a problem anyways.
True, but we're more machmir when it comes to the kitchen area and stuff that you're going to be using for Pesach for cooking. Well, and another option is you don't have to kasher it at all, but you want to be machmer, so you cover it. Cover it with aluminum foil. That's what I do. I don't do it this way. That was some years I did kasher it. There's a trick. We're going to learn about it soon, and this goes back to Hirsch's question. That there's two types of libun. Libun is the burning out with a fire. There's two types. One is with a flamethrower, or with actual fire, and one is called libun kal. It's a lower level of heat. And we're going to see that there's a question when you need the higher level of heat, when you need the lower level of heat. For sure, it goes like this. We have...
Small
No, it's not a question of big or small blowtorch. The question is how hot do you have to what heat do you have to reach? So what we've said up till now is we talked about the first level is hadacha, right? That's just cleaning. Second level is hag'ala, putting it in boiling hot water, and then we had two types. We have immersing it in the boiling hot water, and then we have pouring on, right? Immersing is for when it absorbed taste in the first or second vessel, and the hagala, the pouring on is irui, it's called. That's when it absorbed taste through irui as well. So these stands that we're talking about that hold up your pot, how could they have absorbed taste? There's no liquid. They can't. So why do we say that they have any taste? Sometimes what happens? The pot spills over. The pot spills over. And instead of having your pot, just on the dry fire here, you've got the spill over here, and it spills all the way here. And on the stand, which is holding up the pot, right, this kind of a trivet type of thing, a grate, that grate is going to be absorbing the taste of your chicken soup, of your chametz stick chicken soup. And so that's why it has to be kashrut. So maybe the fire kashers it all the time, but if you want to be machmir, so you have to kasher. How do you kasher it? The same way you got it. How did it absorb the taste? What's the highest level, the most severe way to receive taste? By pouring on, by the soup being poured on it. So take some boiling hot water. You don't have to immerse it in boiling hot water. You can kasher it by pouring hot water over it. Now,
would it be acceptable to substitute for the full body?
That's what we're talking about. The third level is libun. We spoke about it again the other day, and that means burning it out with fire. And I just added now something new that we didn't discuss up till now, and that is that there's two levels of burning, just like there's two levels of hagala, either immersing it in or pouring on top of it. So there's two types of libun as well. One is called kal, and one is called chamor.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
So now that we talk about the stand of the stove, how about, last year they blew towards it, they ruined the tray for the barbecue. So is it okay, because it's burning all the time, can I use the same method to just pour on top of the tray, the box tray?
It's a good question. We're going to talk about barbecues a little bit later. It's a good question. Yeah.
Since you said that a lot of what we're doing with this isn't Lumaisa after 24 hours, it's symbolic.
I didn't.
Something to that effect, something similar to that.
It's the formalistic requirement of the halacha, even though there's no actual taste, transfer of taste.
Certain spices being like fire, that they add heat. Remember we were discussing that they bring out the meat that's in something.
Yeah.
Nominally, if one had something you couldn't put in the fire because it would be destroyed by fire, but it was high of fire, could you get a tray full of curry and
right? Good question, but
put it in there to draw out whatever is in it?
These laws of kashering kalim that we've been speaking about, they're sourced back to the pasuk. The pasuk speaks about fire or water to get them out the way they came in. If it imbibed taste only through curry, then you can get it out with curry. But that's not the case in most circumstances. Anyways, what is the difference between libun chamor and libun kal? Libun chamor is going to be, we're going to talk about it more tomorrow. So I'm sort of just on a tangent here, but I want to answer Hirsch's questions. But I really wanted to tell you more about these grades. So libun chamor, that's really a high level of heat that can ruin things can ruin dishes and pots, and it's like red hot. For the pot to really get, or even white hot, that's a very high level. Yeah, it depends on the material, what color it makes, but libun kal is a lower level. Libun kal, it just has to be hot enough so that if you put a piece of straw next to it, it'll catch fire. It has to be hot, but not that hot. It doesn't have to itself be totally red hot. And so most people assume that, it's true that if you put something in the oven for an hour, that's going to reach the level where it's called libun kal. And so what some people suggest is you take your grates and you put them inside your oven for an hour. And that's libun kal. That's definitely, now what we have here is an increasing level of stringency. Anything that what you really need is over here, number 2B, for sure if you do level number 3, either kal or chamor, is good enough. Like we said before, the spoon really only needs hadacha. What we're going to put it into the pot. That's better. It's not absolutely true because you also have to do cleaning. This includes, it's not just rinsing, it's actually, it has to be, you have to get off all the grime and all the oils, but so cleaning really. But immersing is definitely, more than enough, and libun kal is going to be more than enough for really what you need is just pouring hot water onto it, because that's the way it received its taste, is by pouring on. Anyways, somebody else had a question here. So, a question? Yossi, and then David, yeah.
You know that there's like a process of smoking food, which is a dry process of transferring taste. Can you use smoking method, that same object that you're using for smoking, can you use it for both meat and milk then?
It's a good question. We're going to discuss it later. There's other methods of transfer of taste. We mentioned before, only through liquid, right? Or through fire. There is another method, and that's the question of what you mentioned smoke, but what about steam? Steam is liquid. That's but it's also vapor, right? And steam is similar to that. So the question is does that affect the transfer of taste? If it's absolutely dry, then there's more chances that it wouldn't be transferring taste. But that's not so simple. La briut. Okay, and you had a question as well. Yeah.
The little mice.
So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the steam and the smoke.
What temperature does the oven have to be at?
I'll see it here. I don't remember off by heart.
Can you make it that you can use the oven on Pesach, or is the oven?
So this is a debate. We're going to talk about it. I'd say 90% or maybe 80% of Orthodox Jews say that you can kasher your oven, your regular oven that you use all year round. There's a method of kashering it. Apparently believing that you don't have to reach libun chamur, because taking a blowtorch to your oven will torch it, literally. It will ruin it. And so that's a debate. Some people say no. If you need libun chamur, you can't use your oven. You have to have a separate Pesach oven. So you can buy a little toaster oven. You can get by for 7 days. But I'd say 80% of Orthodox rabbis believe that libun kal is good enough. Libun kal is good enough, and that's how you kasher your oven. You clean it out very well, and then you turn it on for an hour or two at the highest temperature possible. And I think the other day, Ariel was here, and he said, before your question, Hirsch, Ariel said, oh, I know how to kasher an oven. You put on the button, what did he call it? Self-clean. Self-clean is a new invention where they created ovens that really get to the level of hundreds of degrees, hot enough that's considered to be libun chamur. It's built in such a way that it withstands the higher level. And so those kind of ovens, everybody agrees you can kasher. Self-cleaning
my
ovens.
told me that our oven back home,
It's just
My
falling
home
in.
goes 900 degrees Fahrenheit.
900 degrees. That's for sure libun chamor. That's white hot. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And you also wanted to tell a story about your home? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Hirsch, your way. Just wait 1 minute.
Thing and all was like 450 degrees.
450 is all you need. Right.
But, like,
Correct.
So that's the highest?
That's the highest. That's all you need. 450 is fine. Yeah. But who speaks in Fahrenheit anyway? Hirsch, what did you want to say? Please. You forgot already. It happens. So I'm waiting. I can wait 24 hours. It's a Kashrut class, right? As long as you remember within 24 hours, it's still considered fresh.
Oh, the temperatures. So in Hilchot Shabbat,
Yes.
we know that cooking is considered to be either 45 degrees centigrade or 130 degrees Fahrenheit. What are the degrees that differentiate kal and hamur?
Let me tell you. Here it says 350 degrees Celsius. That's libun chamur, and libun kal is 200 degrees. 200 degrees is also very hot, but you can reach that in an average oven, in a standard oven.
200 degrees Celsius versus 350 degrees Celsius?
Yeah, that's right. I'm just looking ahead.
Do we rely on the setting on the oven, or do we have to measure it separately?
No, if it's specially made to be self-cleaning, that's
Not for something.
you go look at the manufacturer's details, and if it says it reaches 350, you're good to go. If it's not a standard oven, then it's a machloket. Now it could be that the rabbis are being a little more machmir than they used to be. It depends. There's a lot of social issues involved, but like I said, I'd say 80% of rabbis say that libun kal is good enough, and then therefore you can kasher your oven. It depends on a lot of other factors. I'm talking about specifically for chametz versus matzah, meaning kosher pesach versus not. There's other considerations. We will discuss it probably tomorrow. Okay, so we'll stop here, give you guys a break before the next class.